Marvelous. Oh, there we go.
Okay, great. So my name's Andre. Christian is with me here, and we're the host of Real Talk University. So we're really excited to have you on. We're just gonna get right into it.
Sure, I'm in.
Audience out there that's not familiar with you, could you just give like a brief background about yourself?
Well, yes. Dropped out of school at 16. Started my first company at 17. Built several companies since then. I guess I'm an unemployable entrepreneur, and spent the last 30 years really paralleling my business career with a career in personal growth. Understanding what makes us tick, what makes us get out of bed in the morning excited or not excited, what makes somebody who has all the resources or education or finance or ideas do nothing in life versus those that have nothing do everything. That's kind of my passion. So that's really what I've been for the last 3 decades of my journey. Seen a lot, done a lot, made a lot, lost a lot, had a lot of fun.
Awesome. So when you said you dropped out at 16, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do when you dropped out, or did you just go out on a whim?
No, I just went out on a limb. I knew that school, for me personally, essentially taught me 2 things. How to pass tests and work for somebody else. And that model really wasn't working for me. I didn't want to, not that I want to upset any of the audience on here, but for me personally, I didn't get a sense of needing to be validated by getting a certificate signed by somebody I'd never met that measures my memory on information that I didn't see of use in where I was going. I saw most of my friends take majors in things that they eventually did nothing with. And I also saw people that went out and needed to get a good education in order to give them the certainty to move forward, which is great, or they learned a specific skill or trade, which is vital, and that's what education can provide, to be able to go out and do something. If you want to take your kid to a doctor, you want somebody that's been to medical school. You don't want somebody that's learned it on YouTube. So but for me, I don't know. Business is my profession. I don't have a trade other than business, and so that was really where why school for me was not in my long-term plans. I never suffered the disadvantage of college.
Absolutely. What was the first business that you did start when you were 17?
Actually, selling toys on the markets and flea markets and what we call car boot sales in England. I worked for my father for a short time, and I learned a big lesson that you should never work for your parents because they never pay you enough. And he paid me $40 a week, and I left him at the end of the week, and I says, Dad, I'm leaving. And he says, what are you getting into, son? And I said, well, I don't really know, but I do know that if you jump in the deep end, you can only swim. And so he paid me my last $40. I paid my mother $10 board. I paid my friend $10 that I owed him, and I had my last $20 to my name. And I went and bought 15 bucks worth of toys from a wholesaler. And I drove to a field where they were having like a flea market, and I wound the window down in my little car, and I handed my last £5 through the window, wondering if I'd ever see it again. And I sold the lot for £30, and then I doubled up. And I went back the next week and I bought £25 worth of toys, £5 to get on the car boot sale. My mum gave me credit on board because she could see I was doing something, and I sold the lot for 50. Went back the next week, bought 45. £5 through the window, sold the lot for 90, and I built up and up over about a month or two until I got enough stock to cover a normal market stall in some of the more established markets. And so Pete's Toys was my first ever business, and I remember I left my father in June, and by October I'd made my first 1,000, and I was so happy because I'd made it and I'd not earned it. And for me, there was a massive difference. If I can make money, you can never take away my toolbox. If I've got to earn money, I'm always subject to somebody else's ability to run his or her company or decide whether they want to continue to employ me. Not to mention that if I'm in a job, and even if it's $1,000 a week, which isn't a bad wage for many people, it means I'm being paid less than what I'm worth, because if the job's worth $1,000 a week, I'm not going to be getting the $1,000 because then there's no profit margin for the company. So by the very definition of working for somebody else, you're always going to accept less than what you're worth. And in today's world, where the barrier to entry on being an entrepreneur or adding value to society means that people like you can make millions in your bedroom, with an online connection, why would you want to go and do something you're not happy with?
Absolutely.
So true.
So you just described to us your first company. How did you end up starting up like 20 plus companies? And if anyone out there is interested, do you have like a system that you go by in order to kind of launch the companies that way?
Oh, well, not for the first few because I was fumbling in the dark. You kind of get into a rhythm and a pattern, and you tend to learn more from your failures. I call your failures your capital. If you are getting into business or you're not getting into business because you're scared of failing, that's like saying, I'm never going to ask out the girl in case she says no. Well, you're going to spend a lifetime being pretty lonely and celibate. So you've got to understand that rejection and failure is part of the growth process. And just like at school, if you're getting every question right on your exam, you're in the wrong class. If you're the smartest money in the room, find a smarter room. So for me, starting businesses in the early days was just because I was excited. I started with nothing, so I had nothing to lose. And I'm a compulsive startup guy. I love building ideas and running off on tangents and seeing if they work or they won't and building a vision. Some other entrepreneurs are not like that. Some people are very good managers or CEOs of existing ideas. I'm not. I'm a lousy CEO. I need detailed people to mop up the mess after me. I'm the one that creates the chaos and the havoc and running off in different directions. And I like that. That suits me best. But in terms of creating other businesses, it was just really grabbing opportunities. And in the early days, I'll be honest with you guys, a lot of it had to do with thinking that I needed to build more, bigger, better, make more money in order to prove to the world that I was good enough. In order to prove to the world that I didn't have the insecurities that almost every young man has, which is that I'm scared that I'm not enough. And so, I've got to go make my first million. Well, guess what? I make my first million, and then what happens? Well, I don't feel great because I'm trying to get an external rule to fit an internal feeling. Doesn't work. So now I've got to make 2 million in case I lose the first. Okay, you get to 2 million, but I'll be better when I get to 5. And seriously, I've worked with people that are worth $700 million that are miserable as hell because they're not billionaires. It never ends. Never ends. Yeah. If you want the secret to life, I'll sum it up in 3 words. Feel great now. And the game that most people play is this. Feel great when? When I make the million, when I get the right girl to go out with me, when I have a successful business, when I complete my next project, when. No. Life doesn't work that way. Feel great now. All right.
It's so huge. It's huge.
And most people, I was just saying, most people have rules that prevent that, not circumstances. I won't allow myself to feel internally a feeling unless something externally fits my pictures that gives me permission to feel it. That's what's actually going on, even though we don't tell ourselves that.
So how do you kind of go by that rule? Like, have you always gone by that, or did it kind of come over time that you realize that you should always be happy with whatever circumstance?
Well, and there's a big difference here again, guys, between being happy and being fulfilled. And the two are not necessarily exclusive. Happiness and the secret to happiness I can give you quite easily. Think happy thoughts. Case closed. That's it. Happiness is an emotion that is the end or byproduct of you thinking happy thoughts. You think happy thoughts, you produce chemicals like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. The end result of the feeling in your bloodstream produces what we call happiness. But at certain times we don't want to be happy. We're human beings. We're designed to experience the entire range of emotions. I didn't want to be happy at my mother's funeral, but I was fulfilled. And yes, I experienced grief and anguish and loss. That's normal. That's part of the human emotional spectrum. But there was no unfulfilled, unfinished conversations. She was out of pain. And so happiness and fulfillment are different things. But when it comes to happiness, I'll be honest with you. I tried being unhappy once and I didn't like it. Don't complicate it. You're not happy. It's just simply because you're not thinking happy thoughts. And most people's thoughts get programmed for them by things like the media, consumerism, a peer group that doesn't serve your highest and greatest good, but instead has its own insecurities and contrast frames. Conformity is massive. You hang around with 10 recreational drug users, I got news for you. You'll become the 11th. If you hang around with 10 people that come from a place of possibility thinking and how we can, not why we can't, you'll become the 11th. It's the law of conformity and you can't beat it. So choose how you're going to get programmed by who you get programmed by. And if you're watching the media, as most of the US is glued to, I've got news for you. You can't be happy because the media's business model, its MO, doesn't have your happiness as its highest agenda. Yeah, so I haven't read a newspaper. I haven't seen a news report in close to 18 years. I have no clue what's going on in the world. I've got every clue what's going on in my world. And guess what? My world works. Yeah, Donald Trump doesn't live in my world. Yeah, CNN, constant negative news, doesn't live in my world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Just like always surround yourself with positive thoughts, and that really just manifests like a positive life, like you're saying.
100%.
So I just do you ever seek business news or like how the stock market's performing or how it can influence the investments you make or anything like that? Or do you just stay away in general?
No, you see a lot of people say, oh, I can filter it out. Well, you can filter it out with the 5% of your mind that you use 5% of the time, called your conscious awareness. All right? And yeah, great. We've all got a neocortex, we've all got a prefrontal lobe, and we all can do critical thinking. But your life isn't based on critical thinking. Your life is based on unconscious habits. Why? Because evolution sets it up that way, so we don't have to learn to walk every day. Great stuff. So for me, I'm not really involved in businesses or would subject myself to businesses that would make me feel reliant on what the media want to feed me under the guise of the label of news, which isn't news. If you think that's what's going on in the world, you're in Disneyland. Yeah. It's a microcosm of a microcosm of selective information that's manipulated to stimulate the amygdala in the brain to be able to hook your attention so that they can record you as statistics, so they can sell you advertising or sell advertisers on the fact that you're watching. The news is not a charity. It's not a public service. It's a business.
100%.
I have no interest in it. And if something's important, it'll find me.
I like that a lot. So going back to when you started your first business, you kind of mentioned how you really had no money. You had like $20 in a dream. So for people in college or younger age, how would you recommend starting a business if there's not a lot of capital involved?
You don't need capital. You need a better strategy. And the one thing that stops people from getting the better strategy is not intellect. It's the belief that they think they need money. All right, so I'll give you an example. Yeah, many years ago, I had a phone call from a friend of mine. It says he was a flower seller on the markets, and he calls me and says, "Peter, I need to borrow 20 grand." I'm like, "Okay, why?" He says, "Well, look, you don't understand." He says, "There's another flower stall that's the other side of town. That's like those two. He and the other guy, his nearest competitor, were like the two big flower stalls." He says the guy's retiring. He's been there 20 plus years. Everybody knows him. Everybody goes there for flowers. He's willing to give me his pitch and let me take over it, but he wants 20 grand. I can't borrow it from the bank because they don't see any security in a market stall. I wanted to borrow it on the house, but it was a short conversation with the wife. And but if I had this stall, I'd corner both sides of the market. I'd be the biggest guy in town. I just need 20 grand. Now I'm going to teach you something here, which is a phrase that I teach my students when around how to become financially creative. And it's this: I don't need money. I need a better strategy. And you find that strategy by asking a question. How can I add value? Because all money is, it's a byproduct or a consequence of adding value. The only time you ever get money is by giving something of value for it first. People that are chasing money are sitting in front of the fire on a cold day saying, "Give me some heat, then I'll go fetch you some wood." That doesn't work. That's not how money works. Money is a byproduct or a consequence of you adding value first. So how do you add value? I said to him, I says, "Who would benefit if you got the stall?" He said, "Well, I'd benefit." I says, "Obviously." He says, "Well, the guy who was selling it would benefit." I said, "Obviously." He says, "Who else?" "Well, the customers would benefit." "Yep." He says, "My wife would benefit." I'm like, "Think harder." He says, "So the suppliers, they would benefit." "Absolutely." "How much money do you spend on wholesale right now with your suppliers?" He says, "Probably about 125 grand a year." I said, "Do you use one supplier or several?" He says, "Well, I shop around, but one of them predominantly, 80%. I says, "Okay, here's what you do. How much would you put through in wholesale business if you had both stores?" You say, well, we're both about as busy as each other. We're both as established. We sell, pretty good. So probably double. So about $250,000. Okay. Here's what you do. You go to your supplier who's in Holland. You say, look, I have the ability to double my wholesale output to $250,000 a year. And I'm willing to sell you the exclusive right of supply, which is competition proof, the wholesaler against losing him to somebody else. And I'm willing to do that, providing you get the right quality and you've got the right flowers. And I'm going to sell you that for $5,000. Right now, if you're the wholesaler and somebody walks up to you, it's got a history and says, I'm going to give you a $250,000 contract for business and all I want is $5,000 up front, would you say yes?
100%. Yeah.
I'd say, how many can I buy?
Yeah.
Right? So if you take that $5,000 and go put it into a trade show, are you guaranteed a $250,000? No. If you take that $5,000 and put an advert in Flower Sellers Monthly, are you guaranteed a $250,000 in business? Of course not. So, and if that supplier says no, what do? You walk down the street and you knock on his competition's door. Somebody's going to say yes. Anyway, take the $5,000 and you go to the gentleman that's retiring. And you say, hey, listen, I know you want $20,000 bucks for this stall, but I don't want to give you I don't want to give you $20,000. I want to give you $25,000. However, I want to pay it over 12 months, which represents 25% interest, which no Bank of America or Wells Fargo is ever going to get even close to. You put $20,000 in a bank these days, and at the end of the year, you've got a slice of pizza, right? So but I want to pay it over 12 months, and here's a $5,000 deposit. Can you see what just happened? And who wins? Everybody wins. Did he need money, or did he need a better strategy?
Better strategy.
Wow. It's
So
a great way to think of it.
Yeah. So students that are sitting there thinking, oh, I can't start a business because I don't have any money, get a grip. I used to have to put $1 million of capital expenditure in to be able to create an infrastructure that you guys can now get for $6 a month on an app. We're living in a time in history where the barrier to entry in business as an entrepreneur is so low. Plus, you're living in a time in history where it's impossible to starve to death. Try it. They'll give you food coupons and force feed you. Right?
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I think really you just gotta open your mind to bigger possibilities, like you said. A lot of people also just look for an excuse of not to start. So there's also that aspect of it. So we're gonna move into what you mentioned earlier about failures and how that kind of helped you. Like you failed forward almost, and you use the term "failed majestically." So how did that help you in your career to learn some things and advance forward?
Well, again, failure is part of the process. If I said to you, the 5th girl that you ask out is going to be, the most incredible soulmate you'll ever meet, are you going to say, well, that's it, I can't deal with 4 rejections, I'm going to be lonely? Or are you going to say, how fast can I get those 4 girls out of the way to find my girl?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And by the way, you'd be amazed how many people wouldn't ask out the 4 people. In other words, how many people wouldn't say, oh, no, I need certainty my business is going to succeed. Well, it ain't. You got no certainty. There's no certainty in life. If you want the defining characteristic of an entrepreneur, I'll give it to you. It's not an MBA, right? Thankfully, because I couldn't spell that. It's not the ability to get all the answers right, or be visionary, or be in the right place at the right time. That's bullshit. No. The defining characteristic of an entrepreneur, if you want to succeed, is this: master the art of handling uncertainty. Why?
That's amazing.
Because there is no certainty in life. The only difference is the tree doesn't stand there worrying if it's going to get blown down by a storm tomorrow. It just deals with what shows up. So go out, swing the bat, and deal with what shows up. And if it fails, know that the business failed, you didn't. I class people that don't start businesses, that want to start businesses, have failed. I've probably failed more times than I've won. I just keep my average number of tries up. And that's the game.
You got to keep trying. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't make the classic mistake that so many entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs do, which is to confuse your self-worth with your net worth. You probably wouldn't want to swap debt ledgers with me right now. I probably owe $700,000 more than you guys. And I probably drive a better car. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not about my self-worth and my net worth are not combined. So if I lost everything tomorrow, it'd be a damn good excuse to go again. It's not having it, it's the getting it. Why? Because everything in the physical world is subject to the law of impermanence. In other words, we can't take it with us. And the only people that tried that, as far as I'm aware, were the Egyptians. And what did we do? We dug it up and stole it. Right? Not going to happen. So yeah, don't take it so serious. You don't need a big house and a big car in order to give yourself permission to be happy. Give yourself permission to be happy and then go off and chase the car if you wish, because then it becomes a game, not a life or death thing that if I lose it, I'm going to go commit suicide because I worry about what all my friends think. Which, incidentally, if you want to know what your friends think, I'll tell you. Because most people spend their entire life trapped in what I call goop, G-O-O-P, the good opinion of other people. We spend our life swimming in this sticky crap mess called goop. And when you understand the reality is as follows. We all star as the lead actor in the movie of our life, do we not? I'd imagine you are the star of the movie of your life because I think you're the only person that's in every scene. No? Call me Mr. Perceptive. But that means by definition that people are only one of two roles in your movie. Either they are a supporting cast, quite rare, like a spouse or a brother or whatever, or 99% of people in your movie throughout your life will be nothing more than film extras in your movie. Now, here's where the miswiring creates insecurity and a misperception of how we interface with the world. We make the fundamentally flawed mistake of thinking that just because we are the star in our movie and we see ourselves as the star in our movie, that everybody else sees us as the star in our movie. But guess what? What movie are they starring in?
Their
movie.
Which means, by definition, what role are you playing?
The extra.
Most likely extra, right? Which means, ultimately, the truth, my friends, is this. That most people don't care enough about you to bother to give an opinion of you because they're too busy being worried about what they think you're thinking of them. So give up the pretext. Stop worrying about life and what you think everybody else cares because they don't care. Yeah, or if they even give the illusion that they do care, it's only for while you're a film extra in their scene in that particular moment. And as soon as you walk out the door, you don't exist in their movie.
Wow,
so
absolutely.
Give up what you think other people are thinking of you. So swing the bat, go have fun, build a business if it's what you call for. And if it's not, that's okay. Not everybody wants to play the entrepreneur game. It's optional. Some people want to play the stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mum game. Some people want to play the volunteer game. Some people want to play the spiritual game. It's all optional. There's only 3 games that you can play that are non-optional. The first is the money game. By the very definition of being in society, you're either playing the money game or it's playing you. So it does pay to pretty get good at managing money. See, most people earn enough money, they just haven't figured out how to manage the money they get, which is why they never have enough of it. Now, the second game you don't get to play, to vote on, is the health game. You're either playing the health game or it's playing you. And I'll tell you right now, if you don't make time for health, you have to make time for illness. It's a binary equation. And then the final game, which is non-negotiable, is the relationship game. Again, like money, by the very definition that you're in society, yeah, it's a team sport. You've got to get good at relationships, either intimate relationships or friendships or customer relationships, whatever it is. Those 3 games are the only non-negotiable games. Everything else you can choose. You don't have to be a business guy, entrepreneur, vet, scientist, student. It's optional. Other than that, go have fun. Don't take it so serious.
Yeah, there's
I love that.
So many amazing things you said in that whole spiel, especially the uncertainty part. I think life in general, or just being an entrepreneur, is just the amount of uncertainty you can handle at a given time. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. So, I mean, it's just great perspectives all around. Anything to add?
I think that most of my stress in my life comes from, I would say, expectations, not only for myself, but for what other people are expecting of me, like you said. So if I could work on kind of eliminating those, it would definitely make me a much happier person, like you were saying. So I'll work on that for sure.
Well, the reality is that nobody can actually do anything to you emotionally without your permission. What you're saying is, if I don't fit your pictures, then I perceive to have a loss of what I value, which is connection, approval, validation. Well, who the hell can give you that other than you? Nobody can ever love you more than you love yourself. So if you're running around with an empty love bucket, hoping somebody's going to drop some magic beans in it from their love bucket, I've got news for you. Good luck. Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Gift your overflow.
I think it's all about self-fulfillment, really.
I think that's a hard, yeah.
I said most people spend their entire life chasing success instead of realizing that there's a massive difference between chasing success and chasing fulfillment. Yeah, and those that quite often, especially in the US, that get to the top of Success Mountain want to jump off because they realize what's there isn't what they wanted. And it's a real shame. So, for me personally, it doesn't matter what happens. And have you heard about my little adventure about 18 months ago, 2 years ago?
No.
Oh,
I might have if you bring it up.
yeah. When I went to jail.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I saw that on your website, but I thought it was just like something you did as an experiment. I didn't know you actually went.
Kind of was in a fight, but no, I was arguing a civil action against a major multinational who was, I bought $12.5 million of the goods. I'd paid for it in full. I'd sold it at a small margin. They sued me for $17 million, saying that they didn't know I was going to resell it. Now I said, well, that's BS because you didn't give me a contract saying I couldn't. Anyway, we're arguing in court. They spun a contempt of court application on me, which I thought was just a chess move because in civil actions, litigation is nothing more than a tool. And it's not about who's right or wrong. It's just a chess move. I didn't give it as much credence as I should have done. I realized how the court works afterwards by who can hire the best storytellers. They sold it to the judge and he gave me 6 months in the toughest jail in England as the only non-criminal. Lost my business, lost everything. And had one of the most incredible adventures I've ever had the privilege of living. And I went in that scenario knowing that the river of life always bends. There's no certainty in life. And if you argue or try to resist what is, you're wasting your breath. Accept first, then choose. Because there's no alternative apart from resist what already's happened, and that's stupid. If the milk's spilt, the milk's spilt. What if and if only is a hamster wheel to depression. So I decided before I went in that, well, look, if I've been lucky enough to inspire millions of people over the last 20 plus years around the world, that's great, and I'm very humbled by that. But if the real people that could benefit from my work never get to see it because they're in somewhere like prison, then, if the universe wants to send me in there to go be a light for other people, send me in. And I went on in mine. I basically wrote to my coaching clients saying, I'm going to be on location for 6 months filming the prison scene of my movie. And I'm going to have an absolute blast. And I'm not going to go in as a prisoner. And I didn't. I didn't go in with the identity of a prisoner. I went in with the identity of a secret agent of change. And over those 6 months, I shifted the entire intake system. I won a national award for getting people off drugs, stopping suicides, and had an absolute blast in the process. And that's because I didn't resist what had happened, and you turn it into what it is that you can do. And I wrote every 2 weeks to my high-level coaching clients, explaining what I was doing, how I was doing it, and it was part journal, part how-to manual, and part you couldn't make it up, but it was real. I mean, 3 deaths in 1 week was the worst week I was there. This is think cross between Prison Break and Shawshank Redemption. It's pretty close where I was at. And when I came out, they said they'd learned more in the 11 private letters that I'd written to them than in the last 2 years following me around the world on stage. And they asked me to publish the letters, which was never intended, but I did. And I think it went Amazon bestseller in 2 hours, #1 in 4 hours, sold to 23 countries on the first day, and has changed the lives of everybody that's read the book. It's called The Inside Track. Available at all good online bookstores, by the way. Thank you for the plug. So, it never matters what happens to you guys. Your environment doesn't define you. It simply gives you the opportunity to define yourself. But if you've got no ability to handle uncertainty and you think the river of life should go straight, then again, you're in Disneyland. Every river winds. And if you learn how to sail with the bends, not resist and swim upstream your whole life, you're going to have a much better life.
So you had no fear going into that prison that you were going to be in danger or anything? You didn't fear for your life or any of that?
Clearly, it was a dangerous environment. Clearly, it was an environment I was not used to and never thought I'd ever have or see. Right? But you make a choice. Is fear going to support me or not? Well, no, because as soon as fear rises, intelligence plummets. It's a biological reaction. Literally, the blood will be squeezed out of the prefrontal cortex into the muscles to be able to work off reflex, because you don't want critical thinking when somebody pulls a knife and tries to stab you, right? So, fear is not your friend. Intelligence is your friend. So I also had a higher belief in a bigger purpose that says I'm there for a reason. I've been sent here to help people, which is what I did. And so I felt that, I have a very strong belief, a governing belief, and I write about this in the first letter to my students. That you go to Einstein's most famous question. He says the most important thing a person can ask in their lifetime is, do they live in a friendly or a hostile universe? Because you make a decision on that, and they will live two different lives. So I'm an inverse paranoid. I believe that the universe is involved in a giant hidden conspiracy to make me happy and successful. So therefore, I went inside the prison. Clearly, I'm there for a reason. Clearly, I don't have many skill sets, but I could apply one of the limited skill sets I have, which is in helping people, in an environment where I was perfectly suited. And so, why would I be in danger if I think life has got my back? If you don't think life's got your back and you think you live in a hostile universe, Darwinian mentality, survival of the fittest, then you're going to be walking around from a fear-based residual place because you think everything out there with teeth is trying to eat you. I don't play that game.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's like the way you got to look at it is like life. Everything that happens to you, it happens like for you. Well, not even to you, but for you, right? I hear that a lot, and it's so evident with your story. And then also not playing the reactionary game, like almost anticipating that these things are manifested for you, and you just kind of got to accept them and make the most out of them. And like that's probably the most captivating story and like evident story that you hear that kind of explains those and proves those points, which is it's crazy.
Well, again, not that I'm trying to sell books here, but you have to read the book.
100%.
Yeah, I will.
That's the first thing I'm doing after this call.
No, it's. I'm very blessed. It's a gift that has helped transform a lot of lives. Also signed a movie deal with it, by the way. So in about 2 years' time, you'll see the inside track of the movie come out. In fact, I think the working title is No Matter What.
Wow.
Yeah, so we'll see.
It'd be something like Shawshank Redemption.
It's going to be edutainment, whereby it'll be a gripping story, but also all real, all follows the exact script of what happens, because you've got the book, you can see what happens. The thing with the book that makes it so unique is that it's not written after the event. This is unfolding in real time. Each letter that I write, I don't know what's happening in the next letter because it hasn't happened yet. So it follows along the entire journey as it's unfolding. And again, you couldn't make it up. But I put all the best tradecraft that I've learned for 30 years there, because I said to my students, look, what a great opportunity to come along on the ride and see if what I've been teaching you actually works in a real situation, not a classroom.
Yeah, that's crazy. Is it available on audiobook?
Yep, it's Audible as well.
So by you?
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that's great, because we actually have a sponsor with Audible, so all of our listeners could get a free trial and a free book. So hopefully, if they redeem that, they use it for that book.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I work with a top sound engineer to create a really good audio experience with sound effects and different musical score to underline certain aspects. It's a great piece. And again, it's me. I insisted on doing the voiceover because I wanted to put in the correct intonation and the correct inflection so that you could get my voice and my message.
That's awesome. So while we're on the topic of books, obviously you're a talented writer, and you got yourself to write a book at the age of 18, which is like super impressive. So how did you get yourself to do that, and how could other people at that age, like why they should write a book, and how could they do that?
Well, the easiest way to get something done is to start it. And for me personally, I was reading a book on fitness, and I got a strong interest in fitness. I've ran ultra marathons, and as a young kid, I always believed in health and vitality. And so I was fit, and I was reading. A friend had got this book, and it was really poorly written. In fact, the premise was something along the lines of you could look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in 3 minutes a day using 3 chairs and a towel, or some BS. And I'm reading this, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And people are paying £20 for this, right? I'm like, I could write a better book than that. And a little voice went off in my head and says, well, why don't you? So I did. And I went upstairs in my bedroom, I picked up a pen and paper, and I spent 30 days just trying to sketch out a book on fitness that I thought would actually help people and be useful and that I would want to buy. And self-published it, sold it through mail order out of my bedroom at 18 years old, and did okay. And then again, the last
awesome.
book I read was never meant to be a book. It was literally the private letters to my clients.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that was all handwritten, by the way. There was no computers in the prison.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. So on the topic of mentoring, like you said, you mentored some of the prisoners and kind of helped them with their mental struggles. But if anyone wants to be a mentor, they obviously have to have the confidence to speak directly to the person and actually feel like they're influencing them. So how did you kind of get that confidence?
What do you mean? How did I become a mentor?
Yeah, basically.
Essentially, yeah.
All right. Well, I became a mentor and a coach because I was tired of giving free advice. That's pretty much how it started. Yeah, and what I say, one of the most fundamental skills you can cultivate as an entrepreneur, as I said, is the ability to handle uncertainty. But how do you do that? Well, you become massively certain that you can. So my certainty muscle is quite strong because I built it. So if somebody comes and asks me for advice, I'm certain that I can help them, even if that certainty extends to having to admit that I can't do it personally, but I'll be certain that I can refer them to somebody that might help. Yeah, it's not about ego. It's not about trying to make yourself, all the answers. But for me, having that sense of absolute rock solid certainty, no matter what. Walk into prison, pass the salt. Lose my business, pass the salt. It's like that's the life I choose to live. I have absolute certainty I will be okay because the universe looks after me. Always has, always will. And if I'm in the gym of life, and I have to lift some weight on the bar, it's because life's my personal trainer and it wants me to win the marathon. There's two areas, and I'll come back to your question in a second, guys, but there's two areas that I'll share with you that make a massive difference to the evolution of the human psyche. Because most people mature physically, we don't get to vote on that. That's part of the rule set. You can buy creams and you can think happy thoughts and you can eat the right stuff and you can slow that down to an extent and influence it and age better, with less stress. But I got news for you. You're getting old. You can't cheat that rule set. But to mature emotionally or spiritually is a choice. And there are a lot of people that are emotional teenagers that are running around in very adult bodies. And so how do you cross that divide? Well, there's two real steps in that journey that are real strong demarcation points. And the first one is when you finally become okay not being liked. We should teach that to kids before they leave college. All right? When you finally come to a place where you're actually okay not being liked by everybody, you can actually be authentic rather than adapt to what you think is everybody else's approval strategy. Which, ironically, when you're more authentic, more people like you. But your brain doesn't tell you that when you're trying to get validation. And then the second key is when you finally realize that life is a growth-centric experience, not a comfort-centric experience. And that shifts your contextual relationship to life, because when adversity shows up, you realize you're in the gym. The strongest trees grow in the strongest winds, not the best soil. And if you don't know you're in a growth-centric experience, you default to being under the illusion that it's a comfort-centric experience, and it isn't. Imagine being in school and not knowing what school was about. You'd be like, well, why have I got to show up for class? Why have I got to sit here for hours on end? Why have I been given these tests? Why have I been told to go down to the corridor and do? Right? You're trying to avoid it. But if you have a context for understanding school, it doesn't mean that it's any easier, but you now don't resist it because you get where it fits in. But if the professor showed up tomorrow at your university and said, hey, guys, great news. You don't have to show up anymore. No more tests. Do whatever you want. It's all good. Oh, by the way, nobody graduates. You'd be like, whoa. Hang on a minute. I'm only here because I want to graduate. Well, then you've got to show up. Right? So when you realize that life is a growth-centric experience, you have a context for understanding why we're here. We're here to grow up. We're here to grow up emotionally and spiritually. How do you do that? Go to evolution. What does 400 million years of fossil records tell us? that the purpose of life and the direction of evolution is to evolve into higher levels of complexity. You take one amoeba, single cell, you take a human body, 50 trillion cells. What's the difference? A huge amount of cooperation and harmony, correct? Because if you take 50 trillion amoebas and one food source, you've got a war. But you don't see the liver plotting against the spleen to get more hemoglobin out of the bloodstream. Doesn't work that way. The entire body is one harmonious organism. So if we extrapolate that, guys, the purpose of evolution is to evolve into higher levels of complexity, which requires higher levels of cooperation, lower levels of entropy, which ultimately, if you take that out to its conclusion, leads you to one word: love. We're here to learn how to love. We're here to learn how to get on with each other, not fight with each other. We're here to learn how to mature emotionally, and when we come from that place, life tends to work, and when we don't, it doesn't.
That's so true.
Wow. Okay. I'm just trying to process all this, but moving into...
You'll watch this again 10 times, don't worry, it's all good.
100%. We'll be our number one fans by the end of this episode.
Yeah, so
I'm not trying to go too quick, guys, but I do know we've got limited time, and I'm trying to give you as much for the audience here as possible because they have the benefit of replay.
Yep.
So it's already incredible. Plus, they'll have the avenue to go and read your books and the other things you provided us. So,
the inside track's all you'd need is a handbook for life. Trust me.
Okay, perfect. So, kind of moving on here. How do you stay motivated, like day in and day out? Do you ever wake up and kind of think, well, I have a ton of stuff, I'm not going to accomplish it, and you just want to give up? Or are you always motivated by some fact?
Even laughing at the idea. You need to take care of yourself physically because the physical body that we run around in operates on a rule set. So if you have low physical energy, you're not going to be super motivated, excited, and pumped. Right? So if you're sitting on the couch, eating McDonald's, Haagen-Dazs, Domino's Pizza, watching daytime TV and never get out in daylight, I've got news for you. You're not going to be very motivated about anything, right? Especially if you watch daytime TV. Anyway, so take care of yourself physically. That's a big part. Energy and vitality is a huge bonus when it comes to enjoying the game of life. But when it comes to staying motivated, how can you not wake up freaking excited about we're living in a time in human history that our ancestors have dreamed about? We get to do stuff they'd never get to do. Go back 3,000 years. What would the Egyptians have given for a machine you can step on and have breakfast in New York, lunch in Chicago, and dinner in Los Angeles? Kingdoms, right? 2,000 years ago, what would the Romans have given for a tow truck or a bulldozer? Right? 500 years ago, hot running water. 200 years ago, antibiotics. 50 years ago, your grandparents, you told them that you'd have a little device you could stick in your pocket. You can ask it any question, they'd give you the answer. They thought you were sniffing glue.
It's so true, though.
Right?
It's so true.
And many of our ancestors, guys, just to bring it back home, died screaming in agony in childbirth so that we had the opportunity to go out and do what we do. Only 2 generations ago, in the modern world, childbirth was more certain. My grandmother died giving birth to my mother. So the question is, what do you do with the gift that you got? I want to stay in bed all day and take Prozac. Give me a freaking break.
I know. Right? I think a lot of people just take advantage of everything that people have dreamed about for decades, and now it's just here, like cars, cell phones. Everyone just takes it as the norm, and it's not really appreciated like it should be, I feel like.
Yeah, and you don't know until it's gone. Yeah, ask somebody who used to have legs.
Yep.
It's true. Yeah, it's actually a great point. You really don't know what you have until you don't have it anymore, right?
Yeah, so how do you stay motivated? I'll give you the golden secret. Gratitude. When you wake up in the morning and the first thing you think about is what you're grateful for that you have, not what you're upset about what you don't, your life will change in a heartbeat. And most people are programmed through the media, through consumerism, that says if you don't buy my product, your life won't be good enough. And once you bought my product and you realize your life isn't still good enough, you realize why you need to buy the extra widget to add on to the thing you bought to make it slightly better. Ad infinitum. So gratitude is your key. You can't think grateful thoughts and depressing thoughts at the same time. The two don't coexist. They don't live in the same room. So you're depressed? I've got news for you. Stop thinking depressing thoughts. Too simple, isn't it?
It's so simple, but people just don't really like understand that's how the brain works, right?
You know, every thought produces a chemical. So what chemicals do you want to produce? You want to produce oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, or do you want to produce cortisol, adrenaline, yeah, and stuff that makes you feel like crap? Right? You get to choose that because nobody chooses for you. But if you're sitting in front of the electronic income reducer, also known as a television, and you're being programmed by other people that have a hidden agenda that doesn't serve your best interests, then you're going to be programmed, because as human beings, we don't get to choose whether or not we get programmed. That's by design. We only get to choose how we want to be programmed, and that's down to the environment we choose to be in. So are you listening to inspirational podcasts? Are you reading inspirational books? Are you hanging around with inspirational people? Or are you watching daytime TV, listening to your friends moan about why life doesn't fit their pictures because they didn't get the latest iPhone? And generally coming from a place of victimhood rather than excited to be alive and going to swing the bat, because when we get to the end of the game, if I'm lucky enough to be able to choose the last words out of my mouth, I want it to be something like, wow, that was a ride. I want to think that one again.
That's awesome.
That's the game. Now I'll go sell this old car and go pick up another one in some other reality frame somewhere. It's all good. I've got zero fear of death because I understand death is not the opposite of life. It's simply the opposite of birth. And if you're scared of dying, I've got news for you. You're probably more scared of living. Could it end tomorrow? Of course it could. I'll go have fun wherever it leads. It's all good.
I'm just blown away. Like, I'm trying to process all this.
So you would definitely recommend like getting out there and doing like experiencing things rather than buying any material good, right?
Well, there's a balance. I like buying material goods that allow me to talk to you guys on a computer right now, which I wouldn't be able to do if I didn't buy one. But if I'm buying for the reasons of anything other than it feels right, it gives me joy, or it's a fundamental necessity, right? AKA food, right? But I don't buy into the commercial messages, agenda, brainwashing that has so many people in a pervasive spending pattern of thinking that when I get X, then I'll be good enough. When I get Y, then my life will be complete. No, you were born complete. Now you can choose to add something to you if it lights your fire. Not because you think you have to, otherwise you'll be left behind by the crowd and the Joneses will think you're less than because the Joneses really don't care. And we discussed that earlier.
Yeah, it's so true. I think people like they're working towards something like a dream or like a certain number income or any of their goals, and they think like once they reach that point it'll change their thinking or how they feel, and then when they get there they're just unfulfilled. And I think that's why a lot of people like go depressed or bad things happen.
Well, here's the conversation that entrepreneurs don't have, but it's what actually happens most of the time for many people in corporate world. I'm going to spend the next 15 to 20 years, building my business, and I'm going to spend the next couple of decades ruining my relationship, ruining my health, being distanced from my kids, so that at the end of this mythical rainbow, I can make enough money to pay for my divorce, to hire a good personal trainer to get my health back, and buy my kids loads of stuff so they like me again. I mean, is that not the path that so many people take?
Oh my God. Yeah. It's so true.
How about being happy now, and then you can go play the game of business, win or lose?
Wow. Dude.
So essentially work-life balance is what you're saying here.
Well, work-life balance is not really what I'm saying. I'm saying, fulfillment life balance.
Yep.
For me, I work long hours because I absolutely enjoy what I do. And if there's no magical pot of gold at the end of that rainbow, does that mean I get depressed? You kidding? I got to play the game. You look at a greyhound on a track. It's chasing a rabbit that by design it cannot catch. No matter how fast, no matter what diet it's on, no matter how good a personal trainer it has, the greyhound will never catch the rabbit on the track because the game is rigged so it can't catch the rabbit. Correct?
Right.
So do you see the greyhound at the end of the race turning around to its friend saying, hey, listen, that's the third race I've ran this week. I've won all three of them. I still haven't caught the rabbit. I'm going on strike. Do you see greyhounds on pet Prozac? No. what you see is dogs ecstatic at the end of the race because they got to run. That's what they did. Now, you parallel that with business owners. Business owners are chasing the rabbit of fulfillment. It's what they think they're after, but they're running on the track of achievement. And the track of achievement is rigged just like the rabbit, which means they can never catch the rabbit of fulfillment. And what we see is the business owners at the end of the race get depressed, get on drugs, go into victimhood, pull their hair out if they've got any left, instead of realizing that no, they run on the track. Business owners, entrepreneurs build businesses because that's what they're born to do. Go have fun, go do that. And if you catch success or not, it's almost irrelevant because you got to swing the bat, you got to play the game, you got to run on the track because that's what you were born to do. Now you come at it from that place rather than, well, if I don't catch this damn rabbit, I'm out of here. That's a whole different life.
It's all about perspective.
Every time. Life is a subjective experience. You can't argue with that.
Right.
What blows me away is the physicists that still operate in an outdated 100-year-old Newtonian paradigm that think that the world is material-based when we know it's not, it's consciousness-based. Right? That think that it's subjective. Well, how can you... It's the ultimate indefensible paradigm of thinking that the world is objective because you can only ever prove it subjectively. I'll let you sit with that one for a while.
Yeah, and we're definitely gonna be going back listening to this. That's incredible. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but like Ed Milet, he speaks a lot on these things, but not in so much depth and detail. Like, oh my God, that's incredible. His name's Ed Milet.
Ed Milet, no, but sounds like my kind of guy.
Yeah, but like you're just adding like all the meat to that. It's just like it's whole different dimensions to what these people say. It's incredible. So just wanted to ask you real quick, what was the company that you started? What one meant the most to you personally?
Different ones for different reasons. Yeah, I'll be honest. It's like, who's your favorite ex-wife? Right. I'm kidding. It's like different ones for different reasons, right? So for businesses, which is more like your baby than your wife, to be fair. But I founded a company called Space Energy, which was all about commercializing space-based solar and bringing a whole new energy stream to the earth. I invested millions of dollars out of that into my own pocket. It was ahead of its time, to be fair. It was a big swing of the bat. We struck out, no big deal. Lose everything, good excuse to go again. But I really enjoyed that. I built a nutraceutical company, which really helps get a lot of people off the pharmaceutical mantra of a pill for every ill and an ill for every pill. I built a chain of health clubs globally, which is, I think, there's 110 clubs now around the world, which is getting people into the whole aspect of health and vitality and fitness in a way that's just excellent. It's called Energy Health and Fitness. I co-founded that 2002 or 3, I think. And then so I mean, there's been many. What's your favorite country you've been to? Different ones for different reasons. In Europe, I love Vienna. I love Australia. I love Fiji. I love Bali. I love I love everywhere but England, really. But
So just going into all these companies, you've had all these companies. Is there any like time management skills that you practice so that you could focus and give all of your energy you need onto every company so that, you're ensured that they're going to be successful?
You can never be sure they're going to be successful. You can only go in, with 100% self-belief that you can do the best to make it work. But when it comes to time management, it's a misnomer. You can't manage time any more than you can stare at a river and manage the current. Time is managing your relationship to time, like managing your relationship to the current, is a whole different aspect. That's where people struggle because they're trying to manage time. You can't manage time. Forget about it. So what are your beliefs around time? Most people set themselves up to fail. I don't have enough. Like you could go to Walmart and buy 3 hours. I mean, it's not going to work. I personally believe that time serves me. My relationship to time is that time serves me. I'm the star of my movie. And if other people perceive I'm late, I'm never late. I just reschedule. But being caught by distractions is a skill set, or managing distractions rather is a skill set, right? And that's where we come to things like procrastination. So let me give you a quick heads up on procrastination that I don't think anybody else is teaching, because I don't think they see it the way I see it. And that's not being ego-based. I just haven't come across the people who I'm sure do share that philosophy, but I just don't see it in the mainstream. And that is that procrastination is your friend. Everybody tries to battle procrastination. They try to conquer it through motivation. That's because they don't understand the role of procrastination. Procrastination is essentially your inbuilt defense mechanism against the fear of failure, against what it is that you're looking to do. So what happens, let's say you need to write a business plan, but you just keep putting it off. Right? Well, that's because you've already unconsciously future-paced the fact that if I write the business plan and I fail the business, or it's not good enough, I'm going to feel unworthy. But if I don't write the business plan, then I don't feel unworthy. I simply didn't write the business plan. You follow me?
Yeah.
So it's almost like people that are, let's call a spade a spade. People that are overweight and single and moaning that they can't find somebody. And a lot of the time, through their 5% of their conscious brain, they're lonely. They don't want to be heavy. They want to meet somebody. Being single and overweight's lousy. Right? But it's a defense mechanism, which means that consciously they try to lose weight, and they've got a multi-billion-dollar industry that'll convince them that they can. And as soon as they start getting down to a manageable size where they can be accepted for who they are, guess what? It means they can also be rejected for who they are. And that's too painful, because before that, oh no, I'm a nice guy, but people reject me just because of my weight. It's not me, it's my weight. Follow that? So,
yeah.
But if I lose weight, and I'm losing weight, I'll get to a point where I'll start self-sabotaging, because now unconsciously I can be accepted for who I am, and I can't hide behind the fact that it's not me anymore. They actually rejecting me, not my weight. Oh, that's scary. Now let me go put some weight back on. And you'll unconsciously self-sabotage. Now, procrastination operates very similar. So if you're trying to do time management through motivating yourself through something, you're not going to do it. You can put willpower in place at a certain time limit, but willpower has got a time limit. If I'm hanging on to a branch over a cliff, right, I've got willpower. You come back in 3 days, I'm not there, right?
Yeah.
So, procrastination, if you surrender the fear of what you think it is protecting you against, procrastination doesn't need to show up. It dissipates, and you just go do what it is that you were going to do when you were putting off. Oh, well, you know something? If I write the business plan and it fails, what does that mean? Because if you think it means I'm not good enough, you'll put off writing the business plan. But if you think, oh, it means I get the opportunity to try something else, no big deal, you'll start writing the business plan. Procrastination won't have to jump to your defense to protect you from the fear that you're not enough. Does that make sense?
100%. And I think it's so like clear and obvious. It's like with entrepreneurship, especially because people they want success, but they're scared to start because they can't accept the fact that they might fail. And it's just like the way you described it just makes it so clear. And like I've never heard it like described that way. It's definitely a great way to think about it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm going to move on to public speaking. I know that you're probably going to say no to this, but was there ever a point that you were afraid of stepping on stage and speaking in front of a large number of people? How did you overcome that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we like to live with the illusion that the people that look good on stage arrive with none of the fear, because that allows us to think that it's okay for them because they're superhuman, but that means I'm not cut out to be a speaker because I feel scared, when the opposite is true. Everybody gets on stage to start speaking usually has butterflies or is nervous, and the reason for that is because their fear of being judged as not good enough, as not liked, as not living up to scratch or expectations. And so in my early days, absolutely. In fact, I write about this as an example in the Inside Track in chapter 7. Right? And I'll give you the masterclass in like 120 seconds. And this will save you a lifetime of having to go to Toastmasters. Not that there's anything wrong with Toastmasters, they provide good structure, but they don't go into psychology a lot of the time at the level that's required to get you over your fears. Right? So when you're going on stage and you're nervous, it's nearly always because you're focused on yourself. You want the 10s on the feedback form. You could get 10 10s and one person writes a scathing report and you focus on the scathing report for 2 days being upset. Yeah, it's just, the game is wired backwards. But at some point, you're going to get on stage and you're going to grow through that. And you're going to say, listen, I don't care if they know my name. It's not about me. I'm focused on how can I add value? In fact, if I'm not challenging these people's belief system, if I'm not making them question whether I'm right or not, I'm not serving them. What am I here? Entertainment? No, I want to change these people's lives. When I get on stage, yeah, I'm grateful enough to maybe change some lives, but I also recognize this. It's probably because it's the 50th time that they've heard what I've said. And so out of 1,000 people in the audience, maybe 50 people have heard it 49 times before, and I get to collect the accolade of changing their life. Well, I get to do that because of the 49 giants whose shoulders I've stood on. And my job is not to change people's lives. My job is to move somebody from 29 to 30, from 6 to 7. And so, yeah, maybe in 5 years' time, somebody who was at number 9 when they heard me speak is at 49, and the next speaker 5 years from now gets to have that glory at changing their life as number 50. And what that does, it takes away the pressure of me having to think that, oh, I've got to be good enough. No, I go in with an intention. Again, I don't care if they know my name. I want to serve these people. And if you take the focus off what you want to get from the audience, which is approval, validation, connection, referral, commendation, forget that. You go out and say, I want to serve these people at the highest level. And if they don't agree with me, that's so cool. Maybe in 50 times they will, maybe they never will, and that's okay. I don't need somebody else to validate what I believe in order for me to feel good about it if I'm coming with the right intent. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like people will switch their beliefs. Like if they believe something, but the crowd around them doesn't, they'll be like, oh, maybe you guys are right, and just give up on what they came in with as their thoughts.
That's because they're externally validated. You see, I make no apology for my belief system, but I'm also not wedded to it. Now, there's a difference between having different levels of data that you weren't exposed to before that allow you to make a different evaluation. That's okay. You don't want to be a closed-minded skeptic, right? Because closed-minded skeptics, suffer from a lifetime of dogma and are more wedded to their own belief about being right than they are about the openness to possibility of what may be, replacing it with. But you also don't want to be completely open-minded and not skeptical, because then you just become gullible. So you need to have a healthy level of open-minded skepticism. But as a result of that, you can question the data as it comes through and assess it through your own filters, not thinking, oh, well, I need to be in agreement with the crowd so that they love me. Are you kidding? Have you seen where the crowd is going? It's called 90 miles an hour to nowhere.
Right.
So
right. In fact, when you have as many hate websites as your president, you'll be doing well, will you not?
Yeah.
Right. So you have a situation where if I need somebody else's validation in order for me to feel good about myself, I'm going to live a life of reactive misery. And think about it for a second. If somebody else doesn't agree with you, if why would you expect them to if it's not their truth in alignment with their beliefs, values, and rules? Why would you need to convince anybody of anything? No, your job is to be the example of being the best you that you can be, and the invitation for others without having any attachment to whether they take up that invitation or not. And then you can live a life of authenticity and make a real difference.
Wow. Yep. Okay. I'm just still trying to process, but that was brilliant. Okay. We have a couple questions left, like 2 questions and a quick lightning round, so we're almost done here. But online, it said that you shared the stage with people like Bill Clinton and other influential people. Like, who would you say was the coolest that you've ever been able to share a stage with?
I think Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner for the creation of microfinance in Bangladesh, was one of the coolest guys I think I've ever heard. One of the most humble, one of the most unassuming, that's created one of the biggest impacts. He was so cool. I've been very blessed to share the stage with, say, many people that I'd look up to and would love to emulate. I've spent a lot of time with Nelson Mandela's family. I've given scholarships to my business school to some of the people that are affected most in the townships of places like Soweto or Guguledu or place in Cape Town, for example. And we've had them come through my business school and transform into incredible people. And I got to hang out with Mandela's family at his house on the first ever Mandela Day. That was amazing. And so humbled. I would love to have met him in real life, but I didn't. And again, different people for different reasons.
How
Sorry?
How about Sir Richard Branson? Like, I feel like you guys are really kind of similar in some way.
That's a humbling association to make, but no, I mean, Sir Richard's cool dude. I've got a video on my YouTube channel about what he taught me. So I've been on stage with him a couple of times, and the biggest lesson that I learned from Richard Branson is that Richard Branson's not very good at doing business. He'd be the first to admit that. And before people start blogging and hating me for it, let me extrapolate a little there. What Richard Branson is absolutely brilliant at is hiring people that are brilliant at business.
Wow. You never hear that either.
No. Yeah, it was only in the last decade that he kind of got the gist of the difference between gross and net profit. I mean, literally, he's like me. He's a visionary entrepreneur, run off on a tangent, wild, crazy. I mean, I jump out of airplanes to relax. He balloons across the Atlantic. It's just, there's some similarities in that game. I can understand. But yeah, he's amazing, and I'd love to connect and learn more from him if I could.
Yeah, that's awesome. Stuff you never hear.
Yeah. All right, just one last question here. What's the best advice you've ever received, and what is also the worst advice you've ever received?
You don't want much, do you? All right. I would say it's, again, context is definitive, which is actually one of the best pieces of advice I think I ever received. But no, in terms of best advice in business, focus on adding value, not on what you can take. Understanding that, as I say, life is a growth-centric experience, not a comfort-centric experience. Is huge. Worst advice is follow the crowd. Worst advice is you can't do that. Worst advice is you're not good enough. All right. Whenever those words get uttered, smile and look at the person with the compassion of somebody that just has a model of the world that hasn't yet grown up into a factual awareness of their own greatness or potential. And send them some love, not judgment, and be grateful that it's not you.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to go into what we call like a lightning round. It's just 3 pretty simple, thought-provoking questions for you to answer as soon as you can. So the first one is, what was your best purchase of $100 or less?
Oh, I forget her name. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's been way too serious so far on this interview. Let's have a look. $100 or less. Wow. Lightning round. Quick. Think. There was probably a bottle of Amarone, one of my favorite wines, that was on offer, and it was absolutely delicious. And I did say that was an outstanding $100 that I had spent. So
that's awesome. Okay, so what would you say to your 18-year-old self if